Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Natick Democratic Town Committee's Select Board Candidate Forum. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you to our candidates for participating. My name is Craig Bystrinsky. I'm the chair of the Natick Democratic Town Committee. And I should start by mentioning that this meeting is being recorded, and we'll share the recording on our YouTube channel. And also post a link to that on our Facebook page and our website, hopefully tomorrow, depending on how organized we are. I'd also like to ask that everybody keep themselves muted during the event, just as a courtesy to the candidates. Natick's town election takes place on March 29th. There are 2 open seats on the select board. Mike Hickey is retiring, and Rich Sidney is running for re-election. And now I'd like to introduce the candidates in alphabetical order. Kat Monahan. Welcome, Kat. David, are we going to spotlight? Yeah, very good. Kristen Pope.
Thank you.
Welcome, Kristen. And Richard Sidney. Rich, welcome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate everybody being here.
Great. There is a 4th candidate for the select board, Roger Scott, and he has declined to participate tonight. Before we get started, I just want to say, being a member of the select board is a demanding job. And I'd just like to say thank you to all of the candidates for your willingness to take on this service to our community. It's a lot of work, and I think we appreciate anybody who's willing to devote that much to our community. Our moderator tonight is Dr. Bob Awkward. Bob is a professor of human resource management at Framingham State University, and he is a very experienced moderator who has played that role in several forums like this over the years, including last year's Select Board Forum. Bob, thank you so much for participating, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Craig. And thank you all for coming and to listen, participate, learn, and listen at the candidate forum. These are important moments of democracy with a small d. And so we appreciate that, because you can't really make informed choices unless you listen and learn and understand who the candidates are and what their views are in order to make good decisions. And our hope is that in addition to helping you to make those decisions, that you can also pass along that information to other folks, tell them that the debate is on will be on our site, that they can go look it up and watch it themselves. So we really thank you all on a 7 o'clock on a Tuesday evening to come out and do this. And I echo Craig's comments about the candidates who are running. I really thank you all for your willingness to do this, because it's not easy. It's a big role. It's a time-consuming role and an important role. So we thank you all for being willing to put yourself out there and do this work. Now, what's going to happen today or this evening? Here are the rules of the road. Each one of you is going to have 2 minutes to do an introduction of yourself. Then we will begin with questions. Each one of you will have 2 minutes to answer the question posed, and I will rotate it in alphabetical order. So whoever's first, second, and third, the next time the second person will be first. The next time the third person will be first. So everyone has a chance to be the first person to answer. Everyone has a chance to be the last person to answer. So we'll intentionally do that, so we keep it as fair and equitable as we can. If I think a rebuttal is required, then there'll be 30 seconds allowed for a rebuttal. And then everyone will have 1 minute to close at the end of this. if we have time, we may take questions, assuming there are any, and haven't already been asked and answered. We may take questions from the chat at the end of this. So if you have a question that you haven't already submitted, or that you don't believe was asked, then you can put it in the chat and we may get to it, or we may not, given we have 3 excellent candidates who I'm sure are gonna use their time wisely and fully. We may or may not have time left at the end of the program. This is intended to be a 90-minute candidate forum. So with that, I'm going to start in alphabetical order. So Kat Monahan, you go first and you get 2 minutes to introduce yourself.
We're not hearing.
I can't hear it. Can you all hear?
No.
She's taking up 2 boxes on the Zoom, and it may be that Zoom is confused.
With one of the other candidates?
Going out and coming back in.
All right, here she comes.
Hello.
Hey, hey.
8 seconds left, maybe. I don't want to should I start now or should we
Yes,
skip to
go ahead,
Okay.
start. We didn't start counting.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kat Monahan. I'm having technical difficulties, but I'm excited to be here at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday. I've lived in Natick for 7 years. I live here with my husband. We have 2 kids. I moved to Massachusetts to go to Boston University. I got 2 degrees there. One of them was an MBA in nonprofit management and finance. So that enabled me to feel very comfortable with a lot of the town numbers when I started getting involved in town meeting, and later when I was appointed to finance committee. Yeah, those experiences were really helpful in building like a foundational knowledge of how Natick is working right now. I mentioned I have 2 kids. My neighbor down the street is downstairs watching my 3-year-old. So if I'm interrupted by a really adorable toddler, I'm sorry. They've been really, interacting with the neighborhood with my kids has really made me look at Natick in a different way. And I want to run for select board to put my, my passion and my accounting and work experience for good for Natick. How much time do I have left? 2 seconds. I want to give up my time to account for the technical difficulties.
Thank you. Thank you, Kat. Kristen Pope.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Natick Dems, for this opportunity to be a part of this candidate forum tonight. And I want to also acknowledge the other candidates and thank them for their willingness to serve. I am humbled to be a candidate for select board in Natick. Natick is a place where people, family, and businesses choose to come. It's a place rich with history that embraces innovation and diversity. A little bit of history. In the 1800s, Harrison Harwood opened the first baseball factory right here in Natick and was in business for more than 100 years, making baseballs and employing women and innovating the industry as it changed. Dr. Mary Crutchfield Thompson and her husband Tom moved to Natick in the 1950s and created the Natick Fair Housing Practices Committee, the first one in the state, and they helped educate the community on what redlining practices were and help Black families purchase homes in Natick, demonstrating Natick's history of inclusion. When my husband and I were living in Boston and looking for a place to raise a family, Natick is the place that we chose. Not long after moving to Natick, both my husband and I got involved in serving our town on boards. I've had the privilege of serving on Natick's personnel board. I've also served as an advisor to a youth-led coalition called Rise Natick that focused on anti-racist principles, and currently I serve on the United Ways Tri-County Board. Throughout my adult life, servant leadership has been my principle, and I know that Natick is facing complex challenges. Attracting the best talent to our workforce, making sure that the government is accessible for our neighbors. We are working on a town governance review, remaining fiscally responsible, and protecting and expanding our services to the most vulnerable, which are just a few of the things. My experience as a board member who knows the power of collaboration, a business owner of almost 10 years, of talented people who pivoted our business model and tripled our revenues during the hardest times in the pandemic, and an expert communicator of almost 20 years who knows how to listen, connect the dots, distribute information in a way that meets people where they are, and a working mother of a young child in the school system and an engaged citizen. I believe this positions me effectively to represent Natick's Select Board. Thank you.
Thank you. And Richard Sidney.
Hi, I'm Rich Sidney, and I'm running for re-election to the Natick Select Board. I've lived in Natick for 35 years. During this time, I married my wife, Sandra. Our daughter is a graduate of Natick High. Last September, I was elected to the Select Board to fill an empty seat. I'm now running for a full 3-year term. I began volunteering in Natick on the 4th of July Parade Committee. I've served 18 years in town meeting, 10 years on the Finance Committee, and on several other committees. I've learned the complexities of the town budget process and the issues that our town faces. My experience has taught me the importance of balancing diverse needs for our residents and businesses. One of the keys to a successful town is collaboration. On the Select Board, I work closely with the other members and with the administration. Together, we address issues and identify solutions that work best for our town. Key issues facing our town are affordability, effective service delivery, fiscal sustainability, economic development, and transparency. It's hard to find an affordable starter home in Natick, and many people have difficulty staying in their homes. I will continue to work to find ways to keep our community affordable and economically diverse. Natick offers a broad array of services to meet our community's needs, and I believe we can do more. As a Select Board member, I'll continue to look for creative ways to deliver services effectively. Fiscal sustainability is vital to a healthy town. If re-elected, I'll continue to monitor town spending to ensure that it's effective and efficient. At the same time, I'll encourage responsible economic development to attract and keep desirable businesses in Natick. Transparency is necessary for a successful government. I will increase our efforts to provide information so that the public is aware of issues occurring in our town and how they're being handled by the Select Board and town administration. I look forward to answering your questions this evening. Thank you for participating in tonight's forum, and I ask for your vote on March 28th.
Thanks. I thank all of the candidates for their opening statements. And now we'll get into some of the detail. This first question is going to go to Kristen Pope. Natick has faced some challenges over the last few years in balancing the town budget. What is your understanding of the current state of Natick's budget? What do you expect in the next few years? And what steps would you like to see to maintain Natick's budget stability?
It's currently expected to be balanced for the year of 2024. But that does not mean that there aren't concerns about the next couple of years. What I also know is that because we are limited by how much we're able to raise taxes, and how in pacing inflation, there is somewhat of a structural deficit. And so I also know that the town manages a percentage of the budget where the school committee has charge over another part of the budget. And by that, I mean, when they come with their budget, we have another side of the budget. So I know that there is a need for creative ways to use what we have and maximize it. And so in the next couple of years, we want to be able to keep our tax rate stable, keep affordability stable. And the way to do that is to look for creative ways for growth throughout our community, growth in our business community, growth to be able to grow our tax base so that our taxes can remain what they are. And so that is what I will have to say about the budget.
Thank you, Kristen. Rich, same question.
Thank you. I appreciate that question. This next year's budget is, as previously mentioned, in balance. However, it's balanced using a variety of one-time funds, which are frankly going to not be there in the future. That leaves us struggling a little bit going forward. Our local receipts are down through COVID. They're coming back slowly. We expect them to return to fairly normal levels by about fiscal year 26. That will help a lot. We also have the problem that we used stabilization funds to pay our bills through COVID. So not only do we have the usual budget situation, but we also have to replenish our savings accounts. All that being said, the town administration, following goals set by the select board, which I'll continue to work on, has been very creative about finding ways to be more efficient in delivering services to the town. We have we're in pretty good shape. We've still got our AAA bond rating, so we're going to be in good shape. I think that the last thing I should say is I'm staying on top of how the town budgets. As a member of the select board, I set the goals. I help set goals for the town administrator to find good fiscally sustainable ways to balance our budget. And thank you.
And Kat, same question.
All right, thank you. On the finance committee, we use the ditto rule. So I want to thank the prior candidates for everything they've said, and I'm not going to repeat them. Yeah, I do know Natick's budget through being on the finance committee. I'm concerned that even though the budget may be balanced for fiscal 24, as Richard said, as Rich Sidney said, we're not contributing to the stabilization or other post-employment benefit retirement funds at rates that I think people on the finance committee at least are disappointed in. I know that affordability in Natick is part of a crisis right now. And personally, my family could not afford to move into the house that I live in. So I think that we need to be careful with how the new growth is increasing the tax base and how sustainable that is, whether that means exploring options to, I don't know, even like split the tax rate if we wanted to ease the pressure on the residential side, or I don't know. I get frustrated with the way that the budget is sometimes looked at as, I heard it in a recent select board meeting, Natick is a $200 million business. And I understand that that's part of the budget, but I think that Natick is so much more than just a business and the numbers. It's also the people that make it up and how we're serving each other. Yeah.
Thank you, Kat. Next question. This question begins with you, Rich. Previous candidate referenced that the Town Governance Study Committee has been looking at structural issues surrounding Natick's town government and will finish its work later this year. What do you hope will be the result? In your opinion, does Natick need to change the structure of its government?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. I actually applied to be on that committee when it was formed and was not appointed. And at this point, I'm kind of happy that I wasn't, because it means that I was able to be on the select board for the last few months. I'm a very strong proponent of democratic process. However, as a member of the select board, I've also seen where our current form of government kind of slows things down more than is really effective. I don't know what the right answer is. I'm really looking forward to seeing what the committee comes up with. I know that they're talking to a consultant and they're going to be doing some public forums, and I encourage everybody to join them when they do those. And I'm really interested to see what they come up with and what they suggest and what that process might be. I don't know the right answers to this. I thought I did at one time, and I don't. So I'm looking forward to seeing the results of that report, and I'll be able to make better decisions when I see that and when I hear what they found. So thank you.
Kat?
Sorry, I had one of those technical toddler difficulties. I am curious as to what the governance study committee report contains, and I'm excited to hear a member of the select board say that they wish that things moved faster in the town of Natick, because I wish that things moved faster in the town of Natick, whether that means the structure of our town government needs to be revamped, or it just means, I don't know, just a update to the processes, or who gets to approve things and how quickly they get done. Yeah, I've been frustrated with the process of Natick government before, just viewing it through the lens of finance committee and town meeting. We've had articles come before us from what should seem like co-sponsors, but two parts of the town should be acting harmoniously, and it seems like they can't agree on the timeline or maybe who should be in charge of a particular article or effort of the town. Yeah, I'd love for the Natick government to be changed in any way that helps it move more effectively, and in a way that makes people feel that their input is heard and incorporated, but also, at a speed that we can all live with.
Kristen?
Thank you, Bob. I first want to acknowledge the people who've been working on this governance study. I know that they've spent a lot of hours and a lot of time and town resources to review our governance. I am on the Natick Personnel Board, and so I know how the efficiency of our town moving and processes, how it directly impacts the town employees and how swiftly things are able to get done. We're currently short-staffed in ways in the town, and so it creates a greater stress and a greater burden if processes aren't moving efficiently. And so I am in favor of reviewing ways for our government to be more efficient. The Division of Local Services recently made some recommendations, including reviewing our charter and our bylaws to make sure that they're updated and to remove any inconsistencies. And I support that as well. And I look forward to hearing what the town governance study says. They're going to have they're on the select board committee tomorrow. So we'll be excited to hear that even as close as tomorrow what their quarterly update is. And then beyond that, whatever our town governance is, however we are able to bring more people to the table and participate and engagement, that is something I am in support of and want for whatever adjustments we make sure that people are we're able to gather all perspectives and engage people equitably. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. In the next round of questions, we'll start with Kat. And the question is, what would you say are the 1 or 2 most important issues facing the select board right now?
Okay. I'm going to say reducing the town speed limit. And I think the series of decisions that will involve the, I know we're doing a assessment of all of the town-owned properties and land, and it seems like a lot of them are either being repurposed or acquired or even, disposed, sold in some way. I think those decisions are very big for the select board.
Kristen?
I believe that the 2 biggest issues facing the select board right now are affordable housing and our budget. I believe that affordable housing specifically because while Natick has done well over the last several years to increase our affordable housing footprint, there's still more work to do. We have several proposals. The select board has several proposals on the table right now about about affordable housing opportunities. And while most of Natick is affluent and falls under the affluent category, there is a third of the population in Natick who falls at the poverty line or below it. And so it's important that we have affordable housing to continue to keep the economic diversity in our town, but then also our seniors and low income. And I know low income is in addition to affordable housing. So I think this is a big decision that's going to have to be made. And I support opportunities to look for smart, affordable housing that will benefit our community. And then the second is the budget. The budget I believe is important because we are at a place where we are budgeted for or balanced for the next year, but over the next couple of years, that could become in question. And as Rich Sidney did say, we use one-time funds. We're using ARPA money. We are allocating free cash, but needing to figure out how we would operate without those resources and with what our revenue and levy base is. I think that's going to be very important.
And Rich?
Thank you for this question. I think the 2 most important issues facing the select board are working with the town administrator to keep the budget balanced going forward. And finding ways to deliver the services our residents expect and need efficiently and cost effectively. In terms of the budget, Our budget is coming back into balance. The ARPA funds we were using this year were designated by the federal government to help make up lost revenues, which we've identified. So as our revenues, local receipts in particular, come back, we'll be able to rely less on funds like that. We have historically used about $2.5 million of free cash every year. We're using a little more this year to balance our budget. We typically save our free cash for capital expenditures, which we've underspent over the past couple of years as well. So we need to find creative ways, and I will be working with the administration to find creative ways to keep our budget balanced going forward and make up for the one-time funds that we won't have in the future. We also, this goes back to hiring and delivering our services effectively. We're trying to hire people to help us deliver the services, and the administration. We've set goals for the administration to creatively deliver those services in more cost-effective ways and with more limited staff as we try to hire. Costs are rising. That's also an impact on budgeting and also on service delivery. So it's a complex problem, and I'll be working with the administration on that. Thank you.
Now, here's a question that is definitely been one of those nagging issues in the town of Natick. And we're going to start with Kristen for this one. Natick has more than 20 miles of unaccepted roads, many of them in extremely poor condition. How should the town deal with these roads?
Thank you, Bob. Well, one of the things that I saw recently is that in 2018, there was a recommendation for how to handle unaccepted roads. And I believe that this plan prior to COVID was something that the select board was looking into, but because of COVID, there are some of the funds dried up. And so we've pivoted from that somewhat, although the plan that I would have for accepting unaccepted roads would be one, to look back at that plan, and see if now that's something that we could implement and work with our neighbors as to which roads those are. Can we come into agreement about whether or not they're going to be taken up by eminent domain, whether or not we're going to be purchasing those things, to review our budget to see if we can purchase those roads. And then if not, look into state funding as to how we'd be able to do that. I also think that we need to do a survey, an updated survey plan, to see where those roads are, how it benefits the town, and then also how it benefits the community in order to accept those roads. And that's where I would start with that.
Thank you, Rich.
One of my favorite topics. I live on an unaccepted road, and it's in terrible condition. And I've talked to the select board before I was on it about this issue. It's a complex problem. Accepting and fixing all the roads would cost about $30 million or so. We've got about $1 million a year coming from the state for Chapter 90 funds, and we add about $2 to $2.5 million a year of local tax levy to also improve roads. One of the ways that the administration is dealing with this is that they're going neighborhood by neighborhood. And this includes partly as part of the Complete Streets project that we've signed up for. And when they go into a neighborhood, they try to accept any unaccepted roads in that neighborhood and bring them up to speed, put the sidewalks in, and so forth. It's going to take a long time to do that. We can't spend state funds on unaccepted roads. We have to accept them first. The DPW recently presented their 5-year roadway improvement plan. There are several neighborhoods in the next year being tackled. It's a rolling plan. It's going to take a lot of years to get to all the neighborhoods. And, the plan, I believe the plan will be on my website later this evening or tomorrow. So you can see the presentation that was given to us. I know the DPW is also trying to be creative about how to patch these unaccepted roads. And one of the unaccepted roads in my neighborhood is part of that experiment. And hopefully they'll continue to find creative ways to solve this problem. And I will encourage the administration to do everything it can to accept these roads throughout the town.
Thank you. And Kat.
Okay, thank you. Unaccepted roads. Yeah. It's not my favorite topic. I live on an accepted road, thankfully. I think that when I've heard from people who live on these roads, especially maybe neighbors that didn't realize they were buying a home on a road that wasn't accepted, or maybe didn't fully understand what that meant, so many of them feel uninformed, whether it's about what their obligations are, what the town can do for them, or they feel uninformed as to when or if their road will ever be accepted. So we had a group of neighbors at the finance committee with a citizen's petition. I believe this was maybe for fall 2020 town meeting, if not spring. And they were not asking for their road to be accepted or redone or anything. They were asking for, I think it was somewhere between $20,000 and $30,000 for the town to do a survey of their road, just so that the homeowners could know what was going on. And I think they hadn't had an updated survey done maybe since before the 2018 road improvement plan. But you could really, I felt really torn over finance committee's decision, because these neighbors just wanted to know, and she was so desperate for information. And this woman, she had gathered 20 of her neighbors to talk about it. They talked about maybe we could each kick in a few hundred, but then it got to be more than just a few hundred. And so I think the town, we're not going to suddenly accept and have all these roads in great condition in a year, but I think the town needs to deliver, especially to the people living on these roads, some kind of a plan and timeline that is realistic, but also a commitment to say, I don't know, I don't want to tell people you can't live on a road like this forever, but maybe tell them, we're not going to get to you just yet. Your neighborhood will be in our 2030s plan.
Thank you. Here's another issue that generates passion on both sides of this issue. The select board has voted to remove the spillway at the South Natick Dam. Do you favor this plan? Please explain why or why not. And we will start with Rich on this one.
Thanks, Bob. As you know, I voted in favor of breaching the spillway. This is a beautiful place. It was a difficult decision. After I read the report, the FAQs, I listened to the discussions at the board meetings, and I talked to a variety of residents around town, I came to understand that the aesthetics of this place are critical. But it was clear from the report that things are going to change no matter what. After factoring in that the study committee, who I believe were well balanced between experts and citizens, including many who wanted to save the dam initially, voted unanimously to breach, I felt the answer was clear. I was also convinced by the environmental and financial factors. Letting the river run improves the environment by allowing the trees to remain and removes stagnant water that contribute to toxic algae blooms. Leaving out any costs related to repairing and enhancing the parks, breaching is far less expensive for the local taxpayer, and a large part of the project will probably be funded through grants. A free-running river has no uninsured liability either. Given the recent breach in Hanover of a dam similar to ours that flooded East Bridgewater, this liability is potentially significant. I also appreciate that a free-running river is sacred to our native population. I supported a motion to breach the spillway with the additional instruction to plan to create and enhance the parkland on either side of the river so that when the project's complete, there'll be a beautiful place to sit and watch the river run.
Thank you, Rich. Kat?
Thank you. I fully support the dam and spillway being removed. I think that the information produced by the study committee proved that removing the dam was the only responsible option, both for the current decision to make and for the future of Natick, just the future of the river, financially, and yeah, as a safety concern, it's the decision that makes the most sense. And I think it may be hard to live with that decision for some people, and it could be a difficult process, the removal, but I think it will be worth it and to do the right thing for the river.
Thank you. And Kristen?
Thank you, Bob. I first want to just acknowledge that this has been a really tough topic for a good group of people. And by good group of people, I mean the people who feel that they are most impacted by this, that this most closely affects. And it affects our entire town, but there's definitely a group of people who feel strongly about this. And so I want to acknowledge that because these types of decisions and town decisions are tough. You know, as a journalist, as a board member, I am trained to collect all of the facts, to listen to all sides, and then to come to make a decision that benefits the whole. And after the study committee held numerous hearings, had numerous information, worked with experts, worked with Native tribes, I believe that in seeing all that we've seen, the best decision was to remove the spillway. And so I do support that decision. And while I understand that while the decision may not be popular, it's the best thing for Natick.
Thank you, Kristen. Next question, and we'll start with Kat for this question. The Natick Select Board last year identified diversity, equity, and inclusion as a key topic for the town by creating a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee and a position for director of equity, inclusion, and outreach. Neither of these have been filled yet, but besides filling them, what do you think are the most significant challenges facing Natick regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Thank you. I think one of the biggest challenges is that Natick is changing, and it's changing in so many amazing ways at once, because it's not just that any one ethnic, minority, religious group is coming to Natick. All kinds of people are coming to Natick and flourishing in Natick, but we haven't been able to fill these positions. We have there's a road in Natick that is named after an ethnic slur, and it makes me so mad when I think about it. I think we need to change our town seal. I think diversity, equity, and inclusion means that we need to think about who isn't able to attend meetings and where are meetings being held. I love that this is virtual. And I think disability is something that is left out of the DEI framework a lot of times in people's mind, but we're living through a pandemic and there are going to be so many newly disabled people with long COVID living in Natick, and we need to keep them as part of our community so that they stay healthy and engaged with our community. Yeah.
Kristen,
Would you repeat the question, please?
yes. The Natick Select Board last year identified diversity, equity, and inclusion as a key topic for the town by creating a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee and a position for a director of equity, inclusion, and outreach. Neither of these have been filled yet, but besides filling them, what do you think are the most significant challenges facing Natick regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion?
I think one of the biggest challenges in this particular topic is how diverse voices of all kinds are represented in our town government. And by that, I mean, you know, we are vocal about particular precincts being underrepresented. However, I believe that it's important for the government to meet people where they are, and that we ought to do better outreach, which is why this particular role is so important. The DEI task force made recommendations to the select board, which they've adopted, which is to impanel a 7-member DEI board. And I support that happening. They're also trying to hire this particular position, but, and I was a part of the Natick Personnel Board that helped to develop this particular role. We are in a competitive market where people are seeking, a lot of companies are seeking a DEI officer. And so I look forward to this role being filled and us doing everything we can to attract the right person to this role, because outreach to our community is extremely important, to those people who don't feel seen, to make sure that we are building bonds and collaborating across the different groups and populations that are here. So race, gender, economic, socioeconomic status, age, all of those things play into diversity. And so seeing everybody have their perspective at the table as we're making decisions about our town, I believe is one of the most important parts.
Now, I think it's time for me to get up and move around. Would
Yeah,
you mind
I
going
think
over
so,
there and I'll
right.
stand up?
Okay.
Let's make sure we're muted too.
I'm sorry, were you finished, Kristen?
I am,
Okay.
thank you.
And Rich.
I appreciate this question. I'm actually not an expert on this. I'm definitely supportive of diversity, equity, and inclusion and outreach programs. The REMAP report that was recently done identified 3 key goals. All Natick community members will be able to actively participate at every level of municipal decision-making. Town of Natick will be a model employer in advancing racial equity, and all residents feel welcome and a sense of belonging in Natick. There are over 60 languages being spoken in homes that send children to our school system. We are a very, very diverse community. As an example, today I attended a webinar put on by the Mass Municipal Association about this very topic of outreach to residents and inclusion. I'm working to learn about this. I know that the town administration is actively interviewing candidates to fill the DEI director role. The first time the job was posted, there were no candidates. There were several good candidates this time. One of the key roles as a select board is to set goals for the town administrator. And if I'm reelected, I will ensure that progress is made towards all of these equity goals, from community outreach to supporting and including everybody participating and making our government more available to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. Here's a good question for everyone here. Leading a municipal organization has its own unique challenges, different from for-profit corporations or nonprofit organizations. Further, effective leaders of an organization are often uniquely experienced individuals commensurate with the organization's operations and goals. Please tell prospective voters what you each believe is required by the Select Board to effectively lead Natick government and establish policy decisions regarding its operations and goals. And we'll start with Kristen with that question.
Thank you, Bob. I believe that the first things that are needed from a board member in municipal government is to listen, to first listen and understand what the issues are, what the challenges are, what the context is, what the history is. I think that's the first thing. I'm sure that there's a steep learning curve, but if you are teachable and able and willing to learn, then you can learn. But I believe listening is first and foremost. So listening and then collaboration. Collaboration must happen on a 5-member board where everyone has a perspective, but people want to bring those perspectives and come to a conclusion, a decision that supports the whole. I think understanding all of the nuances of municipal government, understanding the charter, understanding the bylaws, understanding how finance works in municipal government, all of those pieces, understanding our town employees, understanding the reporting structure, all of those things are important to coming together with a deep understanding of how the board works and how your particular role works. I think it also matters that you have a good grasp of organizational effectiveness. While I have a career mainly in the private sector, I've been a board member for over 7 years. And so I understand that collaboration is key. I understand that making decisions in concert of one another with all of the facts is deeply important. And so I believe that with those principles, I would be able to be an effective select board member.
Thank you. Rich, do you need me to read that question?
No, I think I've got it. Thank you, Bob. The first thing that I think is necessary for a select board member is collaboration and listening. I'm not, as a member of the select board, I'm not the only one. I have to work with other people, and I have to work for the town. The select board sets goals for the town administrator, and part of the goal setting process has to be set goals that allow the town administrator to be as creative as possible in solving the problems and meeting the goals. It really requires understanding the big picture and seeing perhaps unintended consequences. The past 3 years, I've been a chief technical officer, which is a lot of really good experience about seeing a big picture. And seeing the big picture when setting policy, when setting goals, seeing the unintended consequences, thinking through those unintended consequences so that we can make the best decision for all of Natick and not just for one particular group, one particular section of town, but for the entire town in all of our diversity. I think that's what we need. Thank you.
And Kat.
Okay, yeah, I think a select board member to effectively put Natick government on that correct policy track, it is understanding and collaborating and communicating. I see it so much as digesting the information from the different pieces of town. and kind of deciding how they all fit together in that big picture. And can we trust the people and enable them, like people like the town administrator or different department heads, whether it's public works or chief of police, to make their own decisions and enable them to go with it while keeping the select board in charge of the policy and the direction that we're going. I think municipal government is different, but having that 5-member board and having a diversity of perspectives is what will achieve the most good. The same way that in a for-profit company, it's been shown that diverse boards perform better financially. If we have more perspectives leading Natick, then I think we'll get further.
All right. Here's an issue. Actually, it was embedded in one of the previous candidates' answers, but it's an issue that is another one of nagging issues for the town and probably is deserving of full discussion by all 3 candidates. And this will be started with Kristen will start this one. I'm sorry. Rich starts this one off. As Natick property values have risen, housing has become less affordable to many. What steps, if any, would you take to help people who live in Natick but are being priced out by even the affordable definition? That was for Rich.
Yes. Thank you. Took me a second to find the mute button. We are a very desirable community. People are moving in, and the price of housing is going up because people want to be here. We're at the affect of a really booming housing market last year that's coming down a bit this year, but it affects the ability for people to buy houses in town and to stay in town. I'm very supportive of affordable housing projects where we can make them happen. There's some good chances for the planning board to put some zoning out in West Natick that can be a little bit dense and therefore more affordable. And I've supported the zoning changes in the downtown mixed use area that allow for smaller apartments, which will also be more affordable. One of the keys to improving affordability is to have a robust economic environment, a robust business population. Businesses are about 20% of our value basis, and they help pay for services that are used by all residents, and they don't use all of those services. So it's really important to do good economic development, and it's really important to continue to find ways to keep our budget balanced and our taxes as low as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Kat.
Okay. What can the select board do to keep housing in Natick affordable, or try to return housing in Natick to affordability? Because I think we're way beyond affordable at this point. I fully support the affordable housing proposals that are before the select board right now. 5 Auburn Street in particular. I really liked the Metro West Collaborative proposal to our response to that RFP. I think that keeping the tax rate low enough for homeowners to handle, even if that means splitting the tax rate, is worth it to preserve the affordability and shift some of that financial burden off of the residents. Yeah, I'm discouraged by how often I see a single family home that used to be affordable for, as they call a starter home, that are being torn down and replaced with a $1.2 million, 2,000 square foot, again, single family home, because that's difficult for most people to start with. And I don't really know if we're building the housing that people can start in Natick with, or that can move to Natick with, with the kind of salary that Natick pays. We have paraprofessionals in the school system making minimum wage for 10 months of a year, and I don't understand where they're supposed to live. Yeah, I think doing what we can to advocate for better public transit in Natick would be better, because then we would be able to have people that maybe can't afford a car. They would be spending more money in the community. There's a lot that the select board can do to improve this.
And Kristen.
Thank you, Bob. Recently, I had the opportunity to attend the Energy Assistance Fair. And while it wasn't directly related to affordable housing, it is related to utilities. And it's one of the things that, has been affected by inflation. And there was in particular a woman there who had really come to her end. There were a lot of partners there to help people reduce their bill or find ways to receive adjustments or to pay it. And she was about to leave and without a solution, but she went to our town assessor and he found her a solution to save her money and to help her to pay her bill. I know those same services are available for people to pay their taxes, to pay their tax bill. We have several opportunities for people to pay, to seek help with their taxes. And what I have found in talking to our assessor is that everybody will receive some kind of help. They will be pointed toward a service. They will be pointed towards, there is a solution and an option for everyone to make sure that they can reasonably pay their bills and maintain their residence. That does not take away from the fact that affordable housing is needed. And there are several plans before the select board, several of them that a couple of them, I should say, not several, because there's 4, but a senior housing affordable plan and the Affordable Housing Trust plan. Both of those, I think, would be great to pursue, looking at all of the factors that are involved. I agree with the rezoning of mixed-use properties to have businesses as well as affordable housing for people to live in condos or to live in apartments. I agree with those things, and I would support those because smart growth in our business community and economic growth in our business community is important to maintaining a healthy economic landscape here in Natick, and so is the housing real estate. So is having our housing real estate our housing stock, that's the word I'm looking for, our housing stock healthy to make sure that we're able to cover those who want to live here in an affordable way.
Okay. I think since we have, there have been a couple questions in the chat. I'll put those in the mix. I still have another question to go, but let's give the audience some. So his question for all the candidates, and we'll start with Kat for this question. That's very appropriate because you raised this issue several times. There are different views regarding the town's tax classification, i.e. single tax rate versus split tax rate. What are your views on this issue and why?
How much time do I have? I'm interested in a split tax rate. Could I be convinced otherwise were I sitting on the select board and hearing the argument and discussing with my peers? Maybe. But I think that it's worth exploring as a way to do a few things. One of them would be to shift the financial burden away from the residential property base and towards commercial. I didn't buy my house to make money for myself. I bought it to live here, to raise my kids, to build a community. But someone that bought a commercial property is using every square foot to make money. They're basing some of their metrics off of that and wondering if they can move somewhere smaller. Do they need somewhere bigger? And I think that it's fair to tax them at a higher rate, and to claim that a commercial property doesn't use services which they benefit from, or they might pay for services which they might not use. That's true for every taxpayer. And to be quite honest, the police are not at my house that often, but they're at Natick Mall. That address comes up on the daily logs quite often enough that I think it's worth justifying a higher tax rate. Yeah. I'm excited for the other responses.
Kristen, that would be you next.
Thank you, Bob. So our tax rate is one of the key factors that brings people to Natick. Businesses, people, and families is our tax rate. And of our neighboring towns, similar towns, Natick has a competitive tax rate. We're in the bottom third of some of like 15 neighboring towns. The top 10 taxpayers in Natick cover almost 11% of our tax levy, and we're in kind of like an 80-20 residential versus 20 retail, and we rely on our retail businesses. I've talked to a number of the businesses. I've talked to Natick Mall, the general manager, and what would happen if we did split the tax and raise their taxes. I've talked to businesses down in Natick Center, and all of them have said that it either puts them in threat or that they would just flat out close. And so with that information, I would not be in favor of splitting the tax rate as it were right now, because I believe that it puts us in threat. I believe it puts us in a greater threat of having Route 9 and Natick Center and Natick Mall and places where we rely to pay our pay a portion of the tax levy. I believe that we would be in threat of them leaving. And so my vision, overall vision, would be to attract businesses to Natick for them to make their home here. And so, you know, if elected, I would collaborate with the select board members to hear more information about this to inform this particular decision. But right now, I believe that I'm not in favor of splitting the tax rate.
And Rich.
Thanks, Bob. At this point, I'm not in favor of a split tax rate. As was previously stated, we have one of the lowest tax burdens in the area for our residential customers. We have a 4-to-1 ratio of residential to business. To save about $100 on a residential tax bill would cost one of our businesses 40% more. And most of our retail businesses, and it doesn't matter whether they're in downtown Natick or West Natick or South Natick, most of our businesses lease their properties, and most of them have triple net leases, which means the landlord doesn't pay the property taxes, the business does. Adding that much of a burden to a small business, it just basically is asking them to move out of town. When I spoke to our director of assessing about this issue, he said that when he was watching assessment hearings in other towns, businesses were saying, thank you for not splitting the tax rate. And businesses in downtown Natick and other parts of Natick that I've talked to have said the same thing. Don't split the tax rate. It will cost us too much money and we won't be able to stay in business. The other thing that happens is because commercial property is valued based on cash flow, not on some valuation of the property. If we raise the taxes, the value goes down. And what happens then is that in the following year, as the value goes down on the businesses, the property taxes rebound to the residentials. It's a no-win situation to split the tax rate. So thank you.
And let's see, here's another question from the chat. How do you expect Natick will respond to the new MBTA Communities Housing Regulation, Chapter 3A of the Zoning Act, which requires multifamily zoning as of right, and how will Natick change or not change as a result? And we'll start with Kristen for that.
Thank you, Bob. I believe that we will respond by looking at all of the facts, that we will respond by getting community involvement as we have a practice of doing. So hearing from our community about the best route to take. And I believe that we will come together to the table with all of those perspectives and consider consider everybody, consider all of our neighbors to make the best decision.
Did we just lose Kristen?
No, I'm here.
Oh,
I'm
you're
done.
done.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm sorry. Your picture disappeared. Rich.
Yeah, this is a really interesting one. There are a couple of things going on in the administration. One is that the administration is considering reaching out to our legislatures, our legislative delegation, to clarify some of the regulations that have been promulgated. However, we've also responded with our first report to the state about how we're going to approach this. There's some pretty good opportunities in West Natick where we could meet some of these requirements. I've heard that a couple of the businesses out there are looking to transform their properties, and the planning board is evaluating overlay districts and other zoning changes that can help us meet these requirements. The gateway zoning that the planning board had put forward to help, which is an overlay district method to help us promote mixed use business and residential in and around both downtown and also along our major arteries is certainly a step in the right direction. As a member of the select board, I'm going to look at all of these things, and I'm going to ask the administration to. I'm going to help set goals for the administration to do these zoning changes in a responsible way, and to keep the changes to places where they make sense, such as maybe around the West Natick train station and so forth. So thank you.
And Kat.
Yeah, as Rich mentioned, Natick submitted their interim compliance plan, which I read, and it seems like we are already probably partially compliant as far as the number of units Natick would be required to have near stations as part of the MBTA Communities Act. I've only been on town meeting, I think 3 years, but we've already had a few proposals for West Natick either veterans housing or affordable housing. I think there was a private developer proposal for the Comcast building next to the West Natick train station that town meeting doesn't like it. So I'm curious. I'm grateful that the state legislature has pushed towns to do this. I'm curious to see how Natick accomplishes it, because I think there are a lot of people that don't like to see housing being built and want to talk about parking minimums. And the spirit of this is really to build mixed use, multi-generational, if possible, housing that takes advantage of the resources of the MBTA and not pushes people into cars the way that we've tried it before. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Natick's progress on this.
Okay. Here's a question that gives you some room to move around on here. As a member of the select board, and this question is going to go to Rich first. As a member of the select board, you will have an opportunity to bring attention to issues that you feel are important. What issue facing Natick would you say should get more attention from the select board?
That's an interesting question, Bob. It's a tough one because there are so many issues that the select board is responsible for. One of our primary goals, one of our primary jobs is to set goals for the town administrator. And I think that, I would want to support the town administrator in finding creative ways to fill the missing positions around that are in our town administration. And set goals to help them be creative doing that. We also have, a variety of, we do have an affordable housing problem in Natick. I would want to set goals for the town administrator to work to find creative solutions to that problem. There's a lot of day-to-day stuff as well that the select board deals with. I think that the most important issue that the select board has to deal with is the one that's most important to the person standing up at the podium right at the moment. And my job is to listen, to absorb, and to make the best decision for the town.
Thank you, Rich. Kat.
Okay. I think a low-hanging fruit that I hope the select board, or I am passionate about, that I hope the select board can tackle, is safety, especially on our town roads, whether that means the sidewalk, the condition of our roads, even we talked about unaccepted streets, or I mentioned in the very beginning of this forum, reducing the speed limit townwide to 25 miles per hour as recommended by the Transportation Advisory Committee. To my knowledge, that's something that's within the select board's power to do, and I think it would make our streets a lot safer, quieter, reduce some of the noise and danger on our streets right now. And then if I could go into a second topic, I would say community outreach and engagement. I think it's very important that people coming to the select board feel heard and included in Natick's community when they visit the select board meetings. And I also think the select board should do more to meet people where they are. And we're talking about building in West Natick train station. I don't want precinct 1 to continue to grow without any representation in town meeting. They're completely vacant, I think, or very close to it. So yeah, community engagement.
And Kristen.
Thank you, Bob. The biggest issue that I would want to bring forth, and this is multi-pronged, I believe would be it's accessibility, but it's also town government. Accessibility in that it's important to survey where our barriers to entry are for people, whether they are in town government, whether they're in affordability, whether they're in the job. You know, one of my roles in the Natick Personnel Board is to review and establish and help develop our job descriptions so that people who are excellent talent are attracted to our town. So the town governance study is really important to me because it is going to determine how we operate in town, what processes, what policies. It's going to determine efficiency. That's going to play into how our town employees are able to work. And then separately, it's going to play into how we are able to continue to be involved. Having community outreach for all precincts to make sure that all of our precincts are represented in town government is critical to having everybody's perspective at the table and getting a full picture of what Natick residents really want to see happen in their town. What really matters to our neighbors and how we are truly serving our neighbors in whole. So accessibility to town government, accessibility to our town services, and the town governance study together to make sure that we are serving this town as equitably and as fully as we should be.
Well, first, I think there are one or two more questions in the chat that we could do. On the other hand, one, we have to be mindful of your time because we've asked you all to come and spend your evening with us. And I said at the top, it would be 90 minutes. So believe it or not, we're very close to that now. And our candidates all have to do their final closing. So in order to ensure we complete when we say we are, and not run over, and therefore the candidates can feel comfortable, they have their time to express what they want to express, we're going to bring this forum to a conclusion and move to those closing statements. And having said that, we'll start with, believe it or not, as the rotations have worked out throughout the course of the questions we've asked, we're actually back to the original setup again. So Kat, you get to kick this off, then Kristen, and then Rich. So you have 1 minute to do your closing. Please bring us to a close, starting with you, Kat.
All right. I just want to thank everyone for coming to this forum tonight. And I'm not muted, right? Okay. Please vote on March 28th. If you want to learn more about my campaign, I'm going to ask you to go to cat01760.com, like KAT, and then the zip code of the town we live in, .com. Yeah, I'm really excited to continue serving Natick in this way if elected to select board. I'm someone that really gets into going to these meetings, as boring as they may seem, and writing the finance recommendation book or reading it or checking to see if we submitted our MBTA community plan on time, even though I have nothing to do with it. I'm passionate about Natick, and I hope that everyone goes out and votes. Thank you.
Kristen.
I want to say thank you to everyone participating in this forum, everyone who put it on, and again to the other candidates for being willing to serve. Again, my family chose to live here and to serve here in Natick, and having lived in other places, worked as an entrepreneur and in the private sector, being a mother of a child who's currently in the school system, I have a unique perspective. I have a perspective that is valuable to Natick and to the select board, to our present and to our future. While there are challenges in Natick, there are also great opportunities. And I believe that working together for the best solution to benefit our neighbors, our people, our businesses, the people that want to come here and call Natick home, I believe that as a select board member that I will do that well. And while our resources may be limited, our creativity is not limited. And so if elected to the select board, I will prioritize collaborating with the select board, and I will make sure that our town government is accessible to everyone who seeks to choose Natick as their home. So I ask for your vote on March 28th. And my website is kristenfornatick.org. Thank you.
And actually, as the candidates are speaking, I think we're populating the chat with their websites for the three candidates. And then finally, Rich.
Thank you to the Natick Democratic Town Committee for organizing tonight's event. And Bob, thank you for moderating. I would also like to thank the other candidates for participating in tonight's conversation. And most of all, thank you to everyone who joined tonight's forum. Natick faces a number of important issues. It'll take experience, dedication, and collaboration to identify and implement appropriate solutions. I hope I've demonstrated that I offer these traits and more in my service to our town. Natick's a wonderful community. My goal is to continue to make it even better. In closing, I love our town, and I'm committed to serving all Natick residents if reelected to the select board. You can find more information about me and my goals for Natick at my website, richfornatick.org, or you can send me an email at electrichsidney@gmail.com, and that's SIDNEY. I ask for your vote for Natick Select Board on March 28th. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you all the candidates. That concludes the candidate forum. And now I'll turn this back to our chair, Craig.
Thank you, Bob. I just want to thank all the candidates for a really great conversation tonight. Very informative. And I also want to be sure to thank you, Bob, our moderator, for doing such a great job. And thank you all for coming out. Again, please be sure to vote. I know this is a voting crowd that comes to things like this, but it's important. And, you know, Natick turnout often is fairly low for these elections. So I just hope that you will do that. And thank you again. That concludes our candidate forum.